Hey everyone, welcome back to Whiskey Therapy. I'm Jason. Today I'm going to show you how to make two super easy and delicious rich simple syrups. Those are perfect for sweetening your drinks, cocktails, or even desserts. To make this as easy as possible, I'm going to show you how to cold blend it so you won't need to heat it up on your stove and then wait for it to cool down. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first things first, here's what you're going to need. We're going to need water, both granulated sugar and Demerara sugar, a blender, measuring cup, and some bottles for storage. All right, let's get started. We'll start with the regular simple syrup first. I'll be making both of our syrups today as rich syrups. Basically, that means it's 2 parts sweetener to 1 part water. I prefer to use the rich syrups as you can achieve your desired level of sweetness without the risk of diluting your cocktail, as can sometimes happen with a regular 1-to-1 syrup. Also, the shelf life is longer in a rich syrup as well. I'll start by adding 1 cup of granulated sugar to our blender. Now you can make these syrups 2 different ways, either by measuring weight or measuring by volume. If you do a 2-to-1 syrup by weight, it'll actually end up being a bit sweeter than measuring by volume. So for today, we're going to be measuring by volume to keep it simple. So we'll get our 1 cup of granulated sugar. So we get all of it here, there we go. And just add that to our blender. So I'm going to be shooting for 65 Brix of sweetness level. Now Brix is a scale of measurement to measure a liquid sweetness. You can use a refractometer to measure it, and you don't necessarily have to have one of those, but if you make a lot of syrups, they are actually really helpful to dial in your ratios. I'll be using one today later in the video just to show how our syrups turn out relative to the sweetness scale. So as I said, I'm shooting for 65 Brix for our rich simple syrup. If you were going to do a 1-to-1 syrup, you would want it to come in around 50 Brix. So next up, we're going to add 4 ounces or a half a cup of water. So we'll just dump that into our blender. Now in the intro I mentioned we would be cold blending our syrups today. One of the hassles with rich syrups is you typically need to heat up the mixture to get all the sugar to dissolve. With this method, we're going to simply blend this at high speed for a minute or 2 until all the sugar is dissolved. I like this method as you don't have to get a pot out and use the stove. You also don't need to let the syrup cool down before being able to use it. Finally, cold blending eliminates the risk of the sugar breaking down by overheating the mixture. Personally, I think it results in a higher quality, more pure syrup. So let's get this blended and I'll be back when it's done. And I'm back. Let's get our workspace cleaned up just a little bit here. All right, now that our syrup is blended, it's as simple as pouring it into our storage bottle. This recipe will yield about 8 ounces of syrup. Actually grab these 8-ounce bottles online. They're great for syrups or any other cocktail mixes that you might need. Now you'll notice that our syrup is a little bit cloudy here at the moment. That's due to the air that was introduced during blending. You can use this syrup right away if you're in a hurry. The bubbles won't affect anything other than the appearance. But if you want it to be clear and pretty, we're gonna set it aside for just a while, say about 20 minutes, half hour, maybe even a little bit more, just depending on how long you had to blend it for. And then the bubbles will work their way out. I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside now while we work on our Demerara syrup. All right, so our Demerara syrup is made the same way as our rich simple syrup. We're just subbing out the granulated sugar for the Demerara sugar. Now a little bit about Demerara sugar, because some of you may not have heard of Demerara sugar before. Demerara sugar is a raw sugar extracted from sugar cane. It's minimally processed, It has large grains and a crunchy texture. You can kind of see that in there. You may be able to find it in the sugar aisle of your local grocery store, or you can order it online as well. If you can't find it, you could also sub out a light brown sugar or a turbinado sugar. Demerara sugar is more of a toffee caramel flavor, while turbinado sugar has a stronger molasses flavor. Personally, I prefer the Demerara as I use this syrup in my old fashions. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen my video on making a smoked old fashioned, I'll leave a link and I'd really appreciate it if you go and check that out. Syrup that I used in that video is the same as the Demerara syrup we're making today. All right, let's get this one knocked out. Just as we did with our earlier syrup, I am going to be adding 1 cup of Demerara sugar to our blender. I'm going to follow that up with 4 ounces or 1/2 cup of water. I'm going to give this a blend at high speed for 1 to 2 minutes until the sugar is dissolved. All right, now that we're blended and the sugar's dissolved, clean up our workstation again a little bit. Finally, we're going to take and pour our blended syrup into the bottle. Then we're going to set it aside so we can let the air bubbles dissipate. Now that we let these rest a while, you can see how clear they are. I left these sit probably a good couple hours with the caps off just to make sure that we got rid of all the air bubbles. And all the sugar's dissolved. And like I said, no air bubbles. So let's see how we did on the sweetness factor. I've got a high range refractometer here that I got online. And if you remember, we were shooting for 65 bricks for our syrups. So let's test our rich simple syrup first. So we just need to add a couple of drops of the syrup to the well on the refractometer. 2, 3, 4, 5, that'll be good. And then press the measure button. So I've got a measurement here of 64.9. I'd say that's pretty darn close to the 65 bricks we were shooting for. So I'm really happy with that. Now let's test our Demerara syrup. And we'll repeat the process here. Just a few drops of syrup in the well. All right, press our measure button. So this one we're getting a little bit lower at 60.6. Not quite as close to the 65 bricks that we wanted, but still, I think acceptable. I think next time we know, maybe to make sure that we totally level the cup and make sure that we have the full 1 cup of sugar in there. But that's okay. That's all part of it. So again, I think it's close enough. And with that said, I'd say we're done and these are ready to be enjoyed. And that's it. You've made your own rich, simple syrups. It's quick, easy, and a great way to elevate your drinks. In terms of storage, it's best to keep these in an airtight container in your refrigerator. With the higher sugar content, these rich, simple syrups will keep for several months if stored that way. Just keep an eye on them. If they start to crystallize or start turning cloudy, then it's time to pitch them. If you decide to make a 1-to-1 syrup, it'll keep for about a month stored in the same fashion. I don't recommend storing these at room temperature as they can go bad in about a week if not refrigerated. Aside from cocktails, you can also use these in non-alcoholic drinks and food as well. For example, you could use these to sweeten lemonade, iced tea, coffee, actually even cold brew. They especially work well in cold brew as they're already in liquid form and they will dissolve much easier than using sugar granules to sweeten. You can even drizzle these on fruit salads, yogurt, oatmeal, pancakes, and actually for a really truly elevated dessert, drizzle these over ice cream. That one is really a treat. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll continue down the path of syrups in upcoming videos. We'll be doing a strawberry syrup, a honey syrup, and even a sour syrup for those timeless classic whiskey sours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.